We have a brand new report about an X-Men villain coming to the MCU that is going to survive the soft reboot and go on to the new MCU. And this character is reportedly going to appear in Spider-Man Brand New Day, further confirming who Sadie Sink is really going to be playing. And before we go any further, I just want to take a second to acknowledge we do not yet have the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer. Yes, Deadline said that it's most likely not coming during the Super Bowl tomorrow, but keep in mind, Marvel has said trailers aren't coming before. Trade outlets have said, nope, they're not coming at the Super Bowl, but we still do get a little teaser, like a 30-second teaser, and maybe they'll just release it online and maybe put something during the Super Bowl that says, hey, go watch it online. That's, of course, not confirmed, but I just want to say keep an eye out because we never know what Marvel is going to do. Even Deadline, even though they say they're not going to do anything, they could surprise us. I hope they surprise us, so keep an eye out. But as of right now, we haven't heard anything about the trailers appearing during the Super Bowl, but luckily for us, we do have some really cool news to hold us over in the meantime, as Marvel Studios is not waiting to set up the story for the X-Men in the MCU till the next saga. They are starting now, and I gotta say, I really like their plan. So this report is an exclusive. This is coming from Nexus Point News, and they have an exclusive, and they only really do these reports if they really know from a really good source what is actually happening. So their exclusive says this on their website: exclusive, Tremel Tillman's character, Spider-Man Brand New Day character, has been revealed. So Tremel Tillman has been cast in the movie. That's been confirmed. We knew that, but we never knew who he was playing. Until now, according to this report, some speculated he could be playing a Norman Osborn in the MCU, and we could finally be getting Oscorp, but it doesn't look like that's coming, at least not yet, perhaps in the next one. But according to Nexus Point News, he's actually an X-Men villain, further adding to the rumors and the reports that Sadie Sink is actually playing Jean Grey, which now I just have full faith in. But the report says Tremel Tillman's mystery character in Spider-Man Brand New Day has finally been revealed. Nexus Point News has learned that Tremel Tillman is set to portray an obscure X-Men villain, William Metzger, in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Some of you might know William Metzger from the comics, and they even say here a little bit of his backstory, and I'll go into it a little bit more as well, but Metzger will serve as the leader of damage control in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and will be an anti-mutant character. Now, Marvel Studios has already told us that for the new mutant era moving forward, that's what Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel Studios, called it, they will focus on that storyline for the mutants, about society being afraid of them. And I mean, it's a basic classic X-Men story at this point in time. I think a lot of people know it. We've even seen it in previous X-Men movies as well, but they're not going to wait until the new universe is established to kind of get into that. They're starting now. If you caught Wonder Man, you saw the Department of Damage Control is looking at superpowered individuals in a pretty negative light. There was a really cool point at the end where they say, you know, he's either viewed as extremely dangerous or could be an ally, and that right there tells us that some shady stuff is going on, because it's not like they're just grabbing everybody and locking them up, even though that is what they're doing, because we saw that in Wonder Man. But it looks like they're looking to make weapons essentially out of some mutants and superpowered individuals, and that's where they come into Spider-Man Brand New Day, and that's where Sadie Sink's character comes in, and that's where Tremel Tillman's character comes in. They're hunting for Sadie Sink's character, who now I'm pretty much 99.99% sure she's playing Jean Grey. Of course, she still could be playing a Hope Summers. She could be a universe-displaced Hope Summers, but right now I think what makes the most sense, since we're basically hearing that the new X-Men movie is going to focus on First Class, which would be Jean and Scott, Cyclops, I think it makes the most sense that she would play Jean. And we've already seen the leaked teaser trailer. It's not officially been released, but we've seen the leaked teaser trailer, and we know that she's not exactly on Spider-Man's side at first. She wants to take down the DODC. She wants Spider-Man to stay out of her way. And at the end, we've heard that ultimately Spider-Man kind of freaks out. He starts to get organic webbing, and he kind of turns into Man-Spider, and he fights Jean, the Punisher, and the Hulk. But Jean goes into his mind, calms him down, and brings him back. That's what we've been hearing. Those are what most insiders have revealed is going to happen during the movie. And that all comes from the DODC hunting down Jean, Spider-Man getting involved, and them wanting to hunt him down as well. They don't like that he's just a superhero out there doing what he wants. And this is going to go over into the new part of the MCU, the next saga, which I do really enjoy because they are setting up a lot actually with Spider-Man in particularly, because I do think he is going to be kind of the focal point of the next part of the MCU, and I'll explain what I mean. But we had Wonder Man set up the DODC in a pretty big way, and also, like Miss Marvel and other things, other Spider-Man movies as well. But now Daredevil is out, and Daredevil is setting up Kingpin and the Defenders in a pretty big way as well. And look at Daredevil season 1. It brought in Frank Castle, the Punisher. Now he is in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Kingpin, as far as we're concerned, is not in Spider-Man Brand New Day, but they are building to that. And we've heard that Sony has now basically said, hey, we're playing ball with Marvel Studios. You guys want to use Marvel characters, Sony-owned Marvel characters in the MCU? Cool. They take a cut, they get their money, they get the characters in the MCU. It's a win-win for everybody. And that's what we've heard Sony has finally agreed to. And they have not tried to make any more Spider-Man movies, or I should say Spider-Man adjacent movies. They're reportedly done with that and just letting Marvel do it now. And given the success that Tom Holland's Spider-Man has had in the MCU, yeah, it just makes sense. So a lot of things are actually building for Spider-Man to kind of be the main character of the next saga. He's not an Avenger, he's not an X-Men. He's Spider-Man, but he can kind of bridge the gap between the two in the next saga. And I love that they're not waiting to start these stories for the next saga, because now we're going to have some continuity, right? A lot of stories are going to end after Secret Wars, and once the new universe begins, a lot of stories will end. But it's nice to know that some of these stories are going to stay the same. Kingpin actor Vincent D'Onofrio actually recently said this. If he was going to be in Spider-Man Brand New Day, he said, no, I think I'll just wait until they have the rights to my character and they put me in one of those movies, and then I'll figure it all out. That was with an interview via The Playlist. He has mentioned this before, that kind of the whole rights situation hadn't been 100% settled yet, and they couldn't use him in movies. However, like I mentioned, with all the reports coming about Sony finally playing ball, it seems like that is something that they are leading up to. And Spider-Man himself looks to be, the movies themselves look to be building sort of a ground level army, like a street level army versus Kingpin. We're already getting some of that in Daredevil Born Again, but ultimately they are building for Kingpin to be sort of Spider-Man's big bad, and that will either come next movie or the last movie, Spider-Man 6. So that story will continue on in the MCU, and that story with Spider-Man also brings over this mutant side of the MCU. It also gives Spider-Man a connection to the X-Men once they're established in the new universe as well. He will know Jean, and of course he will know the Avengers. So Spider-Man, I think, is kind of going to be the neutral party, because I do think there's going to be a lot of conflict between the Avengers and the X-Men, at least at first, but definitely over time as well, because that's just how it's kind of always been. They clash a little bit, right? Because sometimes the X-Men think they should deal with a worldly threat one way, and the Avengers think they should deal with it another way, right? And then you get things like the Phoenix Force happening, right? And, other parties want to intervene. So they're setting this all up now, which is just, I think, the smartest move that they can do, especially since you are basically getting rid of a lot of other stories that have come along throughout the entirety of the MCU, and you're starting fresh. They're starting fresh, but it does seem like they're really focusing on Spider-Man. With all the things that have happened with like She-Hulk and Mark Ruffalo, we hear a lot of rumors about all of this stuff right now. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of actors in general from Marvel, they don't cross over and they get recast. I really would not be surprised, but they do need something that's kind of an anchor. No pun intended for anchor beans. They do need something, though, that is kind of an anchor for the MCU, and I think it actually comes in Spider-Man. I'm not saying he's the anchor being, but for what Marvel's trying to do, I think that one character that pulls the most weight at this point in time in the MCU that can carry that weight over to the new one is Spider-Man. And it looks like they are doing everything they can to actually make that be so. Starting with throwing a lot of the X-Men storylines and a really big X-Men in Spider-Man Brand New Day. So Tremel Tillman's character Like they said, he is an anti-mutant character. He does ultimately die to Magneto, which I think is funny because recently Ian McKellen has been talking about how he's, destroyed New Jersey, and he went on a talk show and he said, sorry about that, New Jersey. And that actually involves another Spider-Man. We have heard that the opening scene for Brand New Day is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man's universe colliding with the X-Men universe. And basically, nobody sits around and waits to figure out what's going on. They just start fighting. So a lot of people are thinking, since Ian McKellen revealed that he destroys New Jersey and he's, shown himself using his powers on the talk show, a lot of people think that's him doing that to Spider-Man's universe, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man's universe. We also recently heard that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is going to be returning in Avengers Secret Wars. That's coming from the insider My Time to Shine. Hello. So lots of plans for Spider-Man, all of them, in the MCU. And again, I think this could be probably the best opening scene we've ever possibly gotten of all time if we have Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man going up against the X-Men and Magneto destroying New Jersey. Like, that would be pretty dang insane. But the fact that they're planning all this right now, I think, is just incredible. But going back to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, we did hear a very interesting, I'll call it a rumor for now. It's in no way confirmed, but it is a very interesting rumor. According to the account Marvel Fans, they state that in Spider-Man Brand New Day, they are quietly setting the stage for the future. Again, using Spider-Man to kind of, move things along for the MCU after that reset. But they say new reports suggest that Kate Bishop and Kamala Khan will make a brief cameo in Spider-Man 4, marking the first time the Young Avengers cross paths with Peter Parker on the big screen. This could happen because we've already heard that some Avengers or some new Avengers are going to pop up in Spider-Man Brand New Day. We've heard Yelena Belova is going to be in it. We've heard Sam Wilson might be in it as well. And of course, it's already got a huge cast as it is. The Punisher, all of the villains, right? Bruce Banner's the Hulk. And we're supposed to see a really crazy version of the Hulk in this movie and in Avengers Secret Wars. We'll have to wait and see on that, but it could also give us some Young Avengers. Again, I think they're looking at Spider-Man as kind of like a main focal point of the MCU and just a really, I would say, important tool and device for bringing some of the old MCU over to the new MCU. And who better to do it than Spider-Man, in all honesty? But that is really why there's so much happening in this movie. It does sound like it's just a mix of just so much, but I do, at the end, think it really just comes down to Spider-Man kind of fighting himself as he's becoming the Man-Spider and basically going up against the DODC because they are seemingly going to be just not big bads, but a bad company, essentially, throughout the entirety of the new MCU, hunting and fighting mutants and superpowered individuals. So I think they're going to be a common foe of most of the superheroes, especially if they are abusing their power and doing experiments on mutants, which is reportedly why Jean Grey, Sadie Sink, wants to take them out, and the Punisher as well, and Spider-Man Brand New Day. So just a ton happening in this movie, and it's incredibly important because it's setting up so much for the future. But one less mystery seemingly solved, if Nexus Point News is correct in this. We know who Tremel Tillman's going to play, William Metzger, who does lead anti-mutant militias in the comics until he gets killed by Magneto. So yeah, I think this is really great. I can't think of a better character, in all honesty, than Spider-Man to really bring the X-Men into the MCU, really the new ones, and then continue it over in the new MCU. So I think this is great, but go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments down below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and you can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.